The date is October 10th, and the village hidden in the leaves is bathed in the hues of an autumn evening. A lone figure stands silently atop the Hawkage monument. He dons navy shinobi trousers, leg wrappings, and matching blue sandals. His upper body is clothed in a long-sleeved, loose-fitting shirt, layered with a white, ankle-length cloak adorned with crimson flame patterns along the hem, fluttering gently in the breeze. His unruly blonde hair frames a heart-shaped face with soft sideburns, and a Konoha forehead protector keeps his bangs away from his eyes. This man is none other than the fourth Hawkage, Minato Namikaze, the legendary Yellow Flash. Wielding his signature teleportation technique, the Flying Thunder God, he was regarded as the swiftest ninja to have ever lived, rivaled only by the fourth Raikage. Minato earned renown for defeating over 1,000 Iwa shinobi alone during the infamous Kanabi Bridge operation, a feat that helped bring an end to the Third Great Shinobi War. Now Minato stands upon his stone effigy, surveying a nightmare unfurling beneath him. Smoke billows upward, blotting out the stars and moon, choking the skies. Terrified screams echo clearly, even at this height. Below, a massive beast cloaked in crimson fur, with menacing red eyes and 9 powerful tails, rampages through the village. The Kyuubi no Yoko, the strongest of the 9-tailed beasts, wreaks havoc, while Leaf Shinobi desperately attempt to halt its destruction to no avail. Thales spoke of its power to level mountain ranges and summon towering tidal waves with the mere sweep of its tails, and tonight, those legends were coming to life. Minato's thoughts drift back to the chain of events that brought them here. It all began with the pregnancy. 9 months ago, he and Kushina had discovered she was expecting quadruplets. Joy and disbelief had filled their hearts. They were going to be parents of 4 children, but a shadow loomed over the happiness. Kushina was the host of the 9 Tails, and during childbirth, a Jinchuriki's seal weakens significantly. The chakra that normally sustains the seal is diverted to nurture the unborn child, or in Kushina's case, children. When the third Hawkage learned of this, he ordered the utmost secrecy. The entire pregnancy was kept hidden, and the delivery was arranged at a secure location with ANBU agents stationed under a powerful barrier. The births went smoothly. Their firstborn, Naruto, arrived with tousled blonde hair and whisker-like markings etched on his cheeks. Next was their first daughter, Mito, with silky scarlet hair like her mother's and pale, creamy skin. Then came Menma, their second son, bearing black and red strands of hair and the same distinctive whisker marks. Finally, 15 minutes later, their youngest daughter, Yae, was born with light blonde locks a shade softer than Minato's. Minato was filled with joy, looking upon his children with pride. He was a father. As he prepared to reinforce Kushina's seal, disaster struck. Biwako and the assisting midwife collapsed, lifeless. A figure clad in a dark cloak and a spiral-patterned orange mask appeared before the cradle. Only one eye was visible, glowing with a fully matured Sharingan. With a kunai in hand, the intruder threatened to kill the infants unless Minato stepped away from Kushina. Acting quickly, Minato used his teleportation technique to save his children, but was forced to leave Kushina behind. He realized too late that separating them had been the enemy's plan all along. Using the mark embedded within Kushina's seal, he teleported to her, only to witness the masked man extracting the Kyuubi from her. Kushina, weakened, informed him that the enemy intended to annihilate the village using the beast. The horrors of forcibly removing a tailed beast from its host were well known, and Minato could only watch in anguish as the masked assailant unleashed the Kyuubi directly into the village. That series of events led to this very moment. Taking a deep breath, Minato calms himself. He had already located Tsunade and brought her to Kushina's side, hoping she could perform a miracle and save her life. I've indulged in enough sentiment, he thinks to himself. Now, I must defend the village. Down below, the Kyuubi seems to sense Minato's presence. Its massive head turns toward the mountain, locking eyes with the fourth Hawkage. Opening its jaws wide to reveal sharp fangs, the beast begins gathering energy, blue and red orbs coalescing at its mouth into a pulsating, immense sphere of condensed chakra. A Baijudama-tailed beast bomb. A terrifying technique that only tailed beasts can wield, capable of wiping out armies or carving craters into the earth in mere seconds. The 9 Tails steadies itself, forming a chakra bomb and hurling it toward the Hawkage monument with immense force. You won't get your way here, the Hawkage shouts, defiant. His hands fly through a series of hand signs. Shunshin, Raiden Kodo. Flash Step, Thunder Guidance Technique. A glowing seal formation appears in the air before the monument. As the sphere of energy nears its target, its motion halts and it begins to sink into the intricate seal, vanishing completely. Minato then reveals a marked kunai. An explosion echoes from far away where the bomb has reappeared. There's no time to admire the success. Sensing danger, Minato spins, kunai ready, aiming to decapitate the masked intruder who tried to sneak behind him. His blade passes through the man as if through mist. Before Minato can react, the enemy grabs his wrist. A swirling vortex opens, with the lone visible eye at its core. Minato suddenly feels his body being dragged inward. Thinking quickly, he activates his teleportation. He reappears sprawled on the ground near another marked kunai, at one of his emergency hideouts, the same one attacked earlier. That strike went through him. Like he wasn't solid, Minato mutters, rising. The same swirling distortion appears again. The masked man emerges unharmed. So, he uses a type of dimensional ninjutsu, Minato thinks, beginning to piece things together. Why did you target the village? He demands. The man doesn't respond right away. I could claim it was randomness, or perhaps a mission. Maybe I seek harmony, or perhaps destruction. Minato narrows his eyes, connecting the clues. He bypassed top-level security, eliminated the ANBU squad protecting the third, knew the childbirth would weaken the seal. He broke through it, controlled the Ninetales, and slipped past our central barrier unnoticed. Could he be Madara Uchiha? No, he's dead. Is that so? The man replies, casually producing a pair of strange shackles and snapping them around his wrists. It doesn't matter who he is, Minato reflects. His abilities are beyond even the seconds, and his ideology dangerous. If I don't end him now, he'll become a threat that haunts the future. They clash. Minato lunges, attempting a critical strike, but his weapon once again passes through. The masked figure responds, swinging the shackle chain to snare Minato. In an instant, Minato vanishes, reappearing near another marked location. He's using that chain as a counter during the brief moment he's tangible. And he can only pull things in through direct contact. He'll try to end this fast before the summoning window closes. He charges again, this time brandishing a kunai charged with chakra. This will come down to who's quicker. He hurls the blade, it phases through the masked man as before. Suddenly, a spiraling sphere of chakra, a Rasengan, forms in Minato's right hand. The masked man reaches for Minato's shoulder, victory seemingly within reach. I've got him, the masked man thinks. But Minato reappears behind him in midair, kunai in hand, and slams the Rasengan into the man's back. The impact sends debris flying and cracks spidering through the earth. He warped to the kunai he threw. As the energy fades, a special mark is left behind, Minato's seal etched on the man's back. Ah, the man's hand starts to disintegrate, pieces crumbling away. You truly are swift, one slip up and he doesn't get to finish. Minato flashes forward again, hand pressed to the man's abdomen. A sealing script, the man murmurs as symbols spread over his body. The Ninetales is no longer under your command, Minato declares, leaping away as the enemy stumbles back. You've won this round. But you're only delaying what's already destined. I will reshape this world, there are many ways to make that happen. With those parting words, he vanishes, leaving Minato with a grim expression. Back in the heart of the village, the chaos continues. Dozens of shinobi struggle to contain the rampaging beast. None seem to notice its eyes change, losing the Sharingan pattern and returning to a feral, slit-pupil gaze. We force it out of the village, push forward. The third Hokage commands. The soldiers surge ahead, determined to drive the monster back. The Sandaime, meanwhile, bites his thumb and performs a series of hand seals before slamming his palm to the ground. A plume of smoke bursts forth, and standing beside him as it clears is none other than the Monkey King, Enma. Did the seal not hold? He asks. The previous Hokage gives a grim nod. We must drive the Ninetales out of the village. A sudden puff of smoke appears, and in its wake stands a tall, black staff. Hiruzen grabs it, positions it under his arm and shouts, "Adamantine staff." Extend, obeying instantly, the weapon grows in size, its tip soaring forward to strike the Kyuubi square in the chest, forcing the massive fox back until it's pushed beyond the village borders. It's outside. Don't relent. Push forward and attack, commands the elder Cage. Minato reappears atop the Hokage monument, this time on the third's likeness, just as the Kyuubi begins forming another tailed beast bomb. He rapidly performs a series of hand signs. A glowing seal pattern materializes in the sky above the nine tails. In an instant, a massive toad drops from the heavens with a thunderous crash. Gamabunta, the great chief of the toads and his personal summon. Minato teleports atop the toad's head just as the beast readies another destructive blast. I'm sorry, Kushina, Minato mutters as he starts focusing his chakra. He must move the battle far from the village. Hiruzen sees what Minato is planning and immediately rushes forward. Sandame-sama, shout the nearby shinobi, trying to stop him. Hiruzen leaps onto the Kyuubi, and in a flash of light, the Kyuubi, Hiruzen, and Minato vanish. Moments later, a distant explosion lights up the sky. That way, move quickly. Scene. The blast zone the refuge Minato had warped to with the tailed beast, and Hiruzen is in ruins. Cries of infants can be heard amid the smoke. Minato, what's going on? Kushina asks, looking slightly better but still worn. I'm sorry, Kushina, there was no other choice. The Nine Tails would have obliterated the village. Soon, Tsunade and Hiruzen arrive, Tsunade carrying Menma and Mito, while Hiruzen cradles Naruto and Yae. A low snarl interrupts them. They all turn as the Kyuubi begins rising again. Kushina slams her hands together. Adamantine sealing chains. Golden chains formed from her unique chakra erupt from the ground, winding tightly around the giant fox. Everyone, listen carefully. I'm going to use what little strength I have left to bind the Kyuubi inside myself and take it with me in death. No, Kushina, Minato interjects. The man behind this. This won't be his last move against the village. His words confuse both Tsunade and Hiruzen. We'll need the beast's power to stop him if he ever returns. If I seal half in myself and the other in one of the... There's no need for either of you to bear that burden. They look over to see Hiruzen holding Naruto and Yae, his expression solemn. I will perform the dead demon-consuming seal, combined with the 8 trigrams seal, he declares, his tone firm. I may not understand everything about tonight, but I know the future of Konoha, and maybe even the world is at stake. And that's enough for me. Sandame-sama, no Minato, my era has passed, yours has just begun, you've achieved so much at such a young age. This is your time, and your children, they need their father. He gives a tired smile. Let me shoulder this final task. All right, Hiruzen, Minato replies reluctantly, his face heavy with sorrow. He knows these are Hiruzen's final moments. Meanwhile, the Kyuubi thrashes furiously, fighting to escape the chains, but something's wrong. Its chakra isn't forming properly. Why, my energy, it won't gather, I feel immobilized. This isn't Kushina's doing. It's the beast's gaze lands on Naruto. That boy, his chakra, it's smothering mine, unintentionally suppressing me. It feels just like. The Nine Tails remembers a long-gone shinobi who once subdued him and his brethren. Can it be? Could he possess that same power? The ritual altar is now ready. The Kyuubi's power is too vast for one child to contain. I will divide its chakra into 3 equal parts, sealing them into 3 of the children. The beast's core will be sealed into 1. Hiruzen pauses. Minato exhales. Naruto, he's the oldest. Hiruzen nods in agreement. He begins weaving hand signs. The Shinigami appears behind him, a spectral presence from the realm of death. It thrusts its hand through Hiruzen's chest, a piercing, unnatural chill overtaking him. No, the Kyuubi roars in protest as its chakra is torn away. Then with a final pulse of power, the beast itself is sealed within Naruto. Hiruzen's body begins to fade, his strength leaving him. He falls, weak, and the others rush to him, Tsunade holding 2 infants, Minato carrying the other pair. Tsunade, I'm proud of you. Tell Jiraiya and Orochimaru the same, he says, making her eyes well up. And Tsunade, please, let yourself feel love again, don't shut your heart away. He turns to Kushina next. Kushina, from the young girl I welcomed to the village, you've become a strong, incredible woman. Lady Mito would be proud of you. She bites her lip, holding back her tears. He finally turns to Minato. Well done, my son, you've made me proud. I entrust the village to you, he says, handing over 4 scrolls, each containing the key to one of the seals. Minato accepts them with a firm nod. I won't disappoint you, he responds with determination. Hiruzen gazes up at the moon. His life, though imperfect, hadn't been a bad one. There were things he wished he could change, being apart from his wife even in death, and failing to save his closest friend from the darkness. He closes his eyes, exhales his last breath, and lets death take him peacefully, a soft smile still on his face. 7 years and 11 months after the Ninetales incident, Tucson, look, I did it, exclaimed a cheerful blonde girl around 7 or 8 years old. Her smooth golden hair, tied in a loose ponytail, resembled the shade common to the Yamanaka clan. Her bright blue eyes sparkled with pride. She wore yellow cargo shorts and a plain red t-shirt adorned with a spiral design on the back. Whisker-like birthmarks were etched on her cheeks. This was Yae Uzumaki Namikaze, the youngest daughter of Kushina Uzumaki, the Crimson Tempest, and Minato Namikaze, the fourth Flash. Nice work, Yae. Now if Menmabaka could just stick that leaf, we could start learning awesome techniques like Tusan's Rasengan, came the voice of another young girl. She had fiery red hair flowing just past her shoulders, vivid blue eyes, and the same whisker marks. Dressed in a sleeveless tan top with black straps forming an X across her torso and snug black shorts, she was Mito Uzumaki Namikaze, second child of the couple. Awa, come on, Nichan, I'm trying. It's just harder than I thought, but I'm almost there, grumbled a black-haired boy with crimson streaks. His deep purple eyes narrowed in frustration as he focused. Wearing a red shirt with a black Uzumaki swirl on the front and dark cargo shorts, he, too, bore the signature whisker marks. This was Menma Uzumaki Namikaze, the third child of the Hokage and the Uzumaki matriarch. Two adults observed the trio with warmth and satisfaction, proud to begin training their children. The man stood at 6 feet tall, his spiky golden hair reaching his shoulders, with two bangs falling along either side of his face. He wore the standard Jonin outfit, dark blue long-sleeved shirt and matching pants, topped with a white haori trimmed with flames and the kanji for fourth Hokage on the back. This was Minato Namikaze. Beside him stood a tall woman, about 57, in practical black shinobi pants ending at the shins, tucked into bandage wrappings. She wore a short red blouse with the Uzumaki crest proudly displayed on her back. Her long red hair was tied into a high ponytail, cascading down her back. Her violet eyes radiated love as she gazed at her children. This was Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. Minato barely suppressed a laugh as Menma and Mito bickered and Yae tried to play peacemaker. All right, you three, he called, smiling. Let's go in, your mom's making lunch. Their playful arguing stopped instantly as they dashed to Kushina, eyes sparkling with anticipation. Ramen, they all shouted in unison, drooling in exaggerated delight as they stood on the grassy field. Kushina gave them a mock-stern look before shaking her head and smiling softly, causing the children to bolt for the house. The parents followed at a slower pace, amused by their kids' energy. Unseen by the cheerful family, a pair of piercing electric blue eyes observed from afar. They belonged to a boy with short, spiky blonde hair and lightly tanned skin. His cheeks bore faint whisker marks, his eyes intense despite his slightly round face. He wore a plain black short-sleeved shirt and black cargo pants brimming with pouches. He stood slightly taller than his younger siblings. This was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the firstborn of Minato and Kushina, bearer of the Nine-Tails soul, and a genius hidden in plain sight. At that moment, Naruto was upstairs inside the Uzumaki Namikaze residence, perched atop the Hokage monument. His room was spacious, lined with shelves stacked with scrolls, covering everything from chakra fundamentals to the histories of the great shinobi nations. Above his bed hung a giant map stretched across the wall, marking each nation with distinct colors. Red for the land of fire, brown for the land of earth, and so on. He moved quietly around the room, grabbing a standard equipment pouch filled with kunai and shuriken. Perks of living in a household where both parents held such high status. Right. He added several scrolls and a change of clothes to his pack, then paused to neatly fix his navy blue bedspread and placed 2 white pillows at the head. With that, he stepped out of his room and made his way down the stairs with calm, measured steps. He didn't spare a glance toward the 3 children chatting aimlessly and simply continued walking until he exited through the front door. At the same time, his father, seated at the dining table reviewing some paperwork, looked up momentarily as he noticed the door closing. He began piecing together who it might have been, quickly deducing the only likely person. With a shrug, he returned his attention to his other son, who was trying to get him to focus on some new technique he was excited about. Mito had seen her older brother leave. Her gaze lingered on the door, a shadow of sadness in her eyes. She had noticed that he seldom stayed at home anymore and often wandered off alone. She tried following him once or twice, but he always vanished before she could keep up, and eventually she gave up. It bothered her deeply how their mother and father had started pulling away from him, from their brother, while lavishing attention on her, Menma, and Ye. It made her angry, but she hadn't voiced her feelings in a long time. When Menma and Ye had started asking their parents about their Aniki, they always got the same dismissive response. He's just not like you three. Don't worry about him, he'll manage. That answer made her blood boil. They all had pushed back against it, but were swiftly shut down and warned not to bring it up again. They tried on different occasions to speak up, but their parents wouldn't budge. So, in quiet rebellion, they resorted to trying to keep some kind of contact with their older brother. But he only grew more distant, even if his eyes still held that same soft warmth whenever he looked at them. That part confused her the most. Why isn't he angry with us? Why does he still care so much? If she had been in his place, she doubted she could do the same. Those thoughts haunted her at night. With a quiet sigh, she resumed eating, far less energetically than before. Naruto descended the stone steps leading from the Hokage monument down into the heart of the village, thoughts swirling in his head about when everything had gone so wrong. That damned old sage and his prophecy. He thought bitterly, recalling what he'd overheard nearly 4 years ago. Flashback technique. The shinobi world is heading toward a time of great upheaval. A child of prophecy will be born, one who will possess an extraordinary power. This child will either save the world or destroy it, Jiraiya had told Minato and Kushina. But it was what he said next that shattered everything. We have to dedicate ourselves to training Mito, Menma, and Yae. One of them is bound to be the one spoken of. We can't take risks, not with the future of the shinobi world at stake. Huh. Kushina blinked in confusion, her eyes narrowing at the sage. Jiraiya-sensei, Minato chimed in, you seem to be forgetting someone, my oldest son Naruto. Jiraiya paused in thought, rubbing his chin. Ah yes, you did have 4. But if I'm remembering correctly, didn't Lord Hiruzen only seal the beast's soul into that one? Yes, and, Kushina replied, already feeling her stomach twist at what she feared he might say next. Then he doesn't matter in the bigger picture. We should pour our efforts into the other 3. If we focus on them, they'll be better equipped to handle the fox's power. Naruto would only hold them back. Let him train on his own until he becomes a genin. Jiraiya's tone was casual, dismissive, as though Naruto was nothing more than a footnote. They're quadruplets. Naruto is one of them. He's our son, Kushina said firmly, her voice rising. And you're suggesting we throw him aside like trash for some vague, unconfirmed prophecy? Minato, you're not actually going along with this, are you? Are we really risking our family based on the ramblings of a washed-up? That's enough, Kushina, Minato snapped, his voice hard. Then he turned to Jiraiya. Sensei, if this prophecy turns out to be fake, I swear, what Tsunade did to you will seem like child's play. Jiraiya swallowed hard, nervously nodding in agreement. Even he knew Minato wasn't someone he wanted to cross, especially with both Kushina and Tsunade glaring daggers at him. Up to that point, Tsunade had remained quiet, contemplating Jiraiya's words. Frankly, she didn't agree. Ignoring one child to train the others because of a dream, it didn't sit right with her. But in the end, it wasn't her choice to make. She would wait and see how the parents handled it. Minato finally let out a tired sigh and spoke the words that would haunt him for years to come. Very well, Sensei. We'll focus our efforts on training the triplets to master the chakra they carry. Good. Then let's go meet my godchildren, Jiraiya said, rising to his feet. Together, they left for Minato's home, unaware of the ripple effect they'd just triggered. And beneath the living room couch, a small blonde-haired boy, only 4 years old, lay hidden. Silent tears streamed down his cheeks, praying that what he'd just heard wasn't real. Author's note: I've adjusted the academy graduation age from 12 to 15, and instead of enrolling at age 6, kids will now join at 9. Itachi still graduated at 10, as he only spent a year at the academy. Do the math for other prodigies accordingly. Basically, just age everyone up by 4 years for past events. With Naruto made his way at a brisk pace toward his favorite training spot, Training Ground 43. He preferred this area since it was on the village's edge, near the infamous Training Ground 44. He'd overheard some shinobi call it the Forest of Death. Odd name. Amusing, really. When he arrived, he was greeted by the familiar sight of dense woods, with a stream cutting through the terrain. A cluster of trees stood ahead, many scarred with kunai marks where targets had long been etched into the bark. Without wasting time, he got to work on the most basic skill any ninja had to master: Thunk, just a bit to the left. Thunk, closer. Thunk, dead center, he smirked, eyes narrowing in satisfaction. He then repeated the sequence, drawing shuriken from varying angles and practicing until he could land a bullseye with near perfection. He didn't stop until he could hit the mark 100 times in a row, resetting the count if even one missed the exact center. Naruto was something of a perfectionist. He'd drill the basics until they became instinctual. No matter how long it takes, I'll be strong, he swore silently. I'm not weak. I won't be weak. He then shifted from stationary throws to more dynamic movements, lunging sideways, running, jumping, mimicking the way he'd seen experienced ninja fight. Being the son of the Hokage came with perks. He'd seen the Chunin exams firsthand when they were held in Konoha, and even the Jounin exams once, during his sibling's 5th birthday. Mine too, he thought bitterly, brushing aside the sting and returning his focus to the task at hand. He continued for over an hour before collapsing onto the ground with a satisfied smirk. Lying flat on his back, he stared at the clouds overhead for 15 minutes before rising to gather his shuriken. Then came kunai practice. The sharp sound of steel hitting wood rang through the forest again, though this session was shorter, just 45 minutes. His aim with kunai had always been sharper than with shuriken. Odd, considering most trainees found it the other way around. It helped that he had more kunai than shuriken to work with. Once he stored the weapons back in his pouch, he sank into the grass again, letting the wind roll over him. Nature always soothed him. When things got hard, he used to sit atop the sandame's stone face just to feel the breeze and clear his thoughts. Eventually, he stood up and began the second phase of his daily routine. He climbed a tree, hung upside down from a branch, and began sit-ups. He remembered when he first started this regimen years ago, barely able to complete 20 on flat ground. Now here he was. He hit 100 before jumping down to start on push-ups. The rest of his workout followed, squats, sprints, and laps around the entire field, pushing his body to the limit. When he finally collapsed from exhaustion, he rested under the cool shade of a tree, staring up at the sky with a proud grin. He felt fulfilled, knowing he put in the kind of effort most his age didn't. His mind drifted back to when he first started down this path, when he took training into his own hands. He'd awakened his chakra not long after turning 5, having learned the leaf-sticking exercise from a scroll in the clan's library. Over the next year, he managed to master the Henge no Jutsu transformation technique and the Kawarami no Jutsu substitution technique. Still can't do the damn Bunshin no Jutsu clone technique to save my life, he thought, annoyed that an E-rank technique continued to elude him. That library was unique, sealed so that only he, his siblings, or those recognized by his parents' chakra could access it. His parents had set up a kind of challenge for their children. While general history, beginner chakra theory, storybooks, and low-level jutsu scrolls were accessible from the start, the more advanced material, like C-rank jutsu and beyond, required unlocking through progress in Fuinjutsu. The deeper the section, the more mastery required to enter. It was a clever way to encourage them to learn. He suspected they expected it to take longer, but he'd already gained access to the C-rank section. Menma was the first to throw in the towel, saying it was too dull and insisting that battles were won with flashy techniques. Mito gave up not long after, irritated by her lack of skill in it. Ye, however, picked it up effortlessly, showing talent on par with his own, even though he had started earlier simply because their parents never bothered to train him, so he did whatever he wanted. He had cried for days atop the Hokage monument after overhearing that conversation in the Hokage office years ago. While the fact that the Kyuubi was sealed inside his siblings had been almost public knowledge, thanks to how much the villagers praised the heroes of Konoha, whenever they passed by, what really hit him was learning he held the beast's soul and physical form. It answered a lot of questions but raised even more. So that's why they stare at me like that. They think I'll be taken over, don't they? From that day forward, he read every scroll and book he could find on the tailed beasts. Most Jinchuriki aren't affected by their demons. The exceptions are rare, like the One-Tails host in Suna who goes insane because they lack sealing experts. In Konoha, it's even rarer since they have some of the best seal masters. He closed the book with a scowl. Are they just stupid? Came the innocent thought from a kid, albeit a bright one. He had always wondered why people treated him differently from his siblings. He hadn't left the compound much except with his parents, but when he did, people glared or snapped at him when he tried to buy anything. He wanted to cry, to run home and tell his Ka-chan and Tu-chan about the cruel people. But then he'd remember being called weak or irrelevant and shoved the thought away. Real strength meant not whining when things got tough. That's what the stories of Konoha's heroes had taught him. Tales of ninjas like Sakumo Hadake, the legendary Sannin, even his own parents. He couldn't imagine any of them crying, though, come to think of it, he'd seen Jirgya tear up more than once. Tsunade too. Orochimaru mostly kept to himself, though rumor had it he had an apprentice. I swear I'll get stronger than anyone. If I'm strong, no one can hurt me. If I'm strong, no one will glare at me. If I'm strong, my family will finally see me. Later that day, Naruto grunted as he slung his worn training bag over his shoulder, starting the long trek to his family estate on the opposite side of the village. His stomach growled in protest. He had lost track of time again, training well into the late afternoon. Glancing up at the setting sun, he muttered, 7:15 huh. I can still make it before, wait, how did I know the exact time? He paused, puzzled, but eventually shrugged it off. While walking the backroads, the usual scowls from passing villagers seemed even more hostile than usual. Not wanting to draw attention, he slipped quietly into a narrow alleyway he'd found while wandering around Konoha. Just as he was exiting the shortcut, he collided with someone and collapsed to the ground, too exhausted from training to stay on his feet. Oops, sorry there, little one. I should have been paying attention, came a voice, calm, musical, and oddly familiar to him. Internally cursing himself for letting his guard down, Naruto looked up. Standing before him was a woman who looked to be in her mid-20s. She had striking onyx eyes and flowing black hair that shimmered like ink. Her skin was a flawless porcelain, smooth and seemingly glowing under the fading light. She wore a black kimono top with the unmistakable Uchiha crest on her back and dark blue civilian pants. Two long bangs framed her elegant, heart-shaped face, and her hair fell down to the middle of her back. It was none other than Mikoto Uchiha, clan matriarch and his mother's closest friend. Mikoto looked down and spotted a familiar mop of spiky blonde hair. Her gaze sharpened as she noticed the golden locks, blue eyes, and distinct whisker-like marks on his cheeks. Only 4 children had those marks, and 3 of them didn't have this particular hair color. That left just one possibility. Naruto, what are you doing out here all alone? And why are you covered in dirt? Where's Kashi-chan or your father? Naruto hesitated, quickly weighing his options before deciding on a partial truth. I was walking through the woods outside the village and lost track of time. I'm sorry for bumping into you, Uchiha-sama, he said politely, bowing with respect. Mikoto frowned, easily recognizing the boy's words as a lie. The way he addressed her so formally felt off. She was more accustomed to being called Aunt Mikoto by the children whenever she visited. Yet when she thought about it, she could hardly recall Naruto ever being among them. In the few times she did see him, he always wore a vacant expression and usually had his nose in a book. No child his age should look that distant. Naruto, be honest with me, and drop the Sama nonsense. I'm practically your aunt, she said, shooting him a mild glare in response to the overly respectful suffix. I'm sorry, Mikoto-sama, but I would never disrespect someone of your standing, he replied politely. She was just about to argue when Naruto cut her off. And forgive me for the lie. I was merely training at one of the nearby fields. It's getting late, so I'll be heading off now. Naruto spoke as he began to walk away, only to be stopped again. Not so fast, Naruto-kun. I'll walk you home myself. Can't let a child wander back alone, now can I, she added with a teasing tone. But, no buts, come on, we're burning daylight. She cheerfully grabbed his hand, and the two set off at a quick pace toward the Namikaze estate. As they walked, Mikoto kept chatting, asking questions like, what's your favorite color? And what have your parents been teaching you? At that question, Naruto tensed. Though Mikoto didn't seem to notice, as she went on about her own children. How they were working on mastering the fireball jutsu, a rite of passage in the Uchiha clan, and how they were beginning training in the clan's signature, intercepting fist taijutsu style. She mentioned they were the same age, Sasuke and Satsuki, if he remembered right, but he had never met them, always being left behind during family visits to the Uchiha household. Outwardly, Mikoto kept a smile, but inside she was troubled. That was yet another question Naruto hadn't answered when it concerned his family. She noticed how withdrawn he was, even more so than Mito, who took after their father's personality. His responses were short, often just a nod, with little elaboration. After nearly an hour, they arrived at the estate's gates. Naruto pricked his thumb with a kunai, pressing it to the security seals layered into the gate. The seals glowed briefly before settling, allowing him entry. Mikoto followed, as always admiring the estate's beauty, the well-kept garden paths, flowing fountains, and the distinct clan symbols. The Uzumaki spiral on one side and the Namikaze crest on the other. They walked to the back, where the Hokage residence was. Naruto stepped inside, removed his shoes, and started up the stairs, only to be stopped by a hand on his shoulder. "Where do you think you're going, Naruto-kun? Can't you see your family's eating?" Mikoto asked, raising an eyebrow. Naruto sighed, already knowing what was coming, but before he could respond, he was dragged toward the dining room where his family was merrily chatting. Kushina noticed them and gave Mikoto a wide smile. "Miko-chan, you should have told me you were stopping by, I would have made more," Kushina said with a playful pout, pretending to scold her sister-like friend. As they talked, Naruto tried to slip away, only to be tackled to the floor by three small bodies. "Aniki," came three excited voices as he found himself pinned under his younger siblings. He groaned softly but didn't resist. Looking up, he met two pairs of ocean blue eyes and one pair of violet. "Narune, we went looking for you after training, but you weren't home," Ye said, clinging to him. "Yeah. You promised to come to the park today," Menma added with a scowl, only to be smacked on the head by Mito, who shot him a glare. "Stop cursing, Menmabaka, you'll get us in trouble with Kasen again," she scolded, then turned to Naruto with a soft smile. "But it's good to see you, Nate-sama. Still, Menma's right, you were supposed to come with us. I wanted you to meet someone." Naruto gave them a small, genuine smile. Despite everything, he always tried to be the ideal older brother. It was his responsibility as the eldest to look after his siblings. "My apologies, Ataudo, Imautos, I had some matters to take care of. Next time, I promise on my word as heir of our clan," he said with warmth, noting their pouty expressions. Ye gave him a mock glare. "Okay, Narune, but you better not break this promise," she warned with playful sternness. Naruto chuckled, patting each of their heads affectionately. All three smiled at the rare show of tenderness from their usually distant brother. Mikoto observed with a soft smile, seeing echoes of her eldest son in Naruto. But that smile faded slightly as she recalled the haunted look in his eyes earlier. Now that she looked closer, his expression wasn't blank, it was masked. Behind it, she saw sorrow, hurt, and something else she couldn't name. Kushina, on the other hand, frowned, recalling the many talks she and Minato had with Georgia, where he insisted the triplets be kept focused and undistracted, meaning, in his words, kept away from unnecessary influences. With that in mind, she called out, "Mito, Menma, Ye, finish dinner quickly, it's getting late. Miko-chan, stay and eat, I'll make you a plate." Then her tone turned cold. "Naruto, how many times do I have to tell you not to come home late? Go to your room, no dinner tonight." Her voice was devoid of emotion. Internally, Kushina winced at how harsh it sounded. She meant to correct herself, but a chilling voice, not one befitting a 6-year-old, cut through the air. "Hi, Uzumaki-sama. Forgive me for my disobedience," Naruto replied, bowing low before turning to follow her command. The reactions varied. Ye's eyes welled with tears. Menma looked ready to shout. Mito glared between their mother and Naruto. Mikoto stood in stunned silence. She'd expected the boy to react, get angry, cry something. But he didn't. His expression stayed impassive, similar to the emotionless masks worn by Root Anbu. Yet the signs were there. His fists clenched until they bled, his body tense with restraint. But it was his eyes that betrayed him. Anger, pain, and a sorrow so deep it consumed everything else. Just as he was about to leave, Mikoto reached for him. Electric blue met charcoal black, and she saw he was seconds from breaking. His siblings looked like they wanted to speak up too, but Naruto pulled away, gave each of them a sharp glance, and continued upstairs in silence. Menma trembled before turning on his mother. "What the hell, Ka-chan? Aniki finally comes home and all you do is yell at him." He would have said more, but the sudden surge of killing intent, Kai from Kushina, floored everyone. Even Mikoto broke into a sweat, reminded of how dangerous her friend truly was. "That's enough, Menma, I'm doing what's best. He can't be allowed to influence you three negatively, you'll understand one day." Her voice was flat and final. She turned to Mikoto, who was still recovering. "So are you staying for dinner?" Mikoto blinked, then quickly replied, "And no, thank you. I should get back, Fugaku will send a search party if I'm late." With that, she made a swift exit. Kushina sighed, then returned to her meal, fully aware of the hard stares two of her children were still giving her. Naruto, meanwhile, was furious. What did I even do wrong? He thought, teeth clenched as tears threatened to fall. No. I won't cry. I can't cry. Crying is weakness. I won't be weak. Over and over he repeated it like a chant as he finally drifted into sleep, unaware of the violet-blue eyes watching him through the crack in the door. Mito and Yae stood silently, tears in their eyes. Yae moved to go to him but was stopped as Mito's hand gripped her shoulder. No, Yae, leave him be. Anaki's tough, he'll be okay. We'll just end up in trouble with Mom if we mess around. Let's just go to bed. He's supposed to come with us to the park soon, we can say sorry then. Yae still seems hesitant, but eventually gives a nod and heads to her room. Mito follows, but not before casting one last glance at the door with a quiet sadness. Don't worry, Nick-sama, I'll always be watching over you, even if you never realize it. With that silent promise, she turns and heads to bed. Time flows on with little change. We find Naruto lying on the grass, gazing at the sky, something he's taken to doing after finishing his daily routine. His thoughts drift to how his life has been stuck in a loop. Ever since Mikoto took him in that night, his schedule hasn't changed. Wake before anyone else, make his own breakfast, walk to his training spot, endure the glares and whispered insults from the villagers, train relentlessly, then end the day with a book or watching the clouds float by. Sometimes, he even sleeps out here, finding peace in the sounds of nature, perching on a branch and listening for hours. Snapping out of his thoughts, he smirks as he remembers a recent win. Tree walking mastered it in just a couple of days. He thinks proudly before his eyes shift toward the far end of the field. Who's there? I know someone's watching. Come out, he demands, standing and slipping into a defensive stance. His brow rises slightly as two kids his age walk toward him. The first is a boy with spiky black hair that sticks out like a duck's backside, a heart-shaped face, and pale skin. His jet-black eyes and attire, a high-collared black shirt with the Uchiha fan on the back and tan cargo shorts, suggest his clan. Standard ninja sandals complete the look. This was Sasuke Uchiha, third child of the stern Fugaku and graceful Mikoto Uchiha. Next to him is a girl, also with onyx eyes and straight black hair that falls past her shoulders, framed by soft bangs. She wears a blue, high-collared shirt bearing the Uchiha fan on the back, along with a short gray skirt over black leggings. Think, a miniature version of Mikoto. This was Satsuki Uchiha, the couple's second child. How's that for introductions? Relax, we just wanted to see who was training so close to the compound. I'm Sasuke Uchiha and this is my sister Satsuki. Who are you? The boy asks. Naruto, comes the blunt reply. A vein twitches on Sasuke's forehead, but before he can respond, the girl beside him speaks first. You're Mito's brother, she says, scanning him carefully and committing his features to memory. He's kinda cute. Yeah, that's me, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. I train out here sometimes. Anyway, nice meeting you, Sasuke-san, Satsuki-san. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving. With that, Naruto turns around, hands in his pockets. Hey, wait up, you can't just walk off like that. Sasuke shouts, hurrying after him. You said you're training, right? Are you aiming to be a shinobi too? Sasuke asks. Nope, Naruto says flatly, gesturing toward the scattered kunai and shuriken. I'm training to be a ramen chef. Satsuki lets out a giggle while Sasuke grits his teeth, clearly annoyed. Taking a breath, Sasuke composes himself and says, spar with me. Naruto raises an eyebrow, curious. Any particular reason you're asking me? Your siblings say you're strong. I want to see for myself, Sasuke replies, stepping into position. He glances at his sister. Ni-chan, can you ref? Satsuki sighs but nods, backing up a few paces. Naruto shrugs and gives a nod too. Any rules? Just taijutsu. First one to land 3 clean hits wins. Satsuki checks their stances, then raises her hand. After a brief pause, she brings it down. Begin, both boys remain still, measuring each other. Sasuke crouches slightly, ready to strike. Naruto leans casually to one side, hands still in his pockets, indifferent. If he won't make the first move, I will, Sasuke thinks, rushing forward. He throws a punch, but Naruto simply tilts his head to avoid it. Sasuke spins into a kick, but Naruto crouches, then counterkicks him in the torso, sending him sprawling. Point to Naruto. He's stronger than I thought. That kick really hurt, I need to be more cautious. Sasuke climbs to his feet, analyzing Naruto's movements. Meanwhile, Naruto is already moving, closing the gap. Sasuke dodges a punch and blocks a kick, but the force still knocks him down again. He's fast. Even sparring with Menma wasn't this tough. I can't just defend, he's stronger physically. I'll have to anticipate his moves. Naruto, watching Sasuke closely, grins inwardly. He's quick and sharp. Let's mix things up. He dashes in again. Sasuke charges to meet him. But suddenly, Sasuke finds himself face down in the dirt, Naruto's knee pressing against his back. Satsuki's eyes widen in shock. One moment they were clashing, next her brother is pinned. "W winner Naruto," she calls out. Naruto stands and offers Sasuke a hand. The boy eyes it for a second before accepting, grinning. "You're really good. Next time I'll win," he says with a smirk. Naruto gives a smirk in return and pulls him up. Meanwhile, another pair of dark eyes observes the blonde from afar, watching intently. The next morning, ugh. With a groan, our protagonist sits up in bed, sunlight pouring through the curtains. He blinks at the clock. 10:15. Gotta get out before it starts. He rushes through his morning routine, trying to be as quiet as possible. Just as he reaches the stairs, a voice halts him. Now, Naruto-kun, you're not planning to skip out on your sibling's birthday again, are you?" Kushina says, arms folded, watching him. "It wouldn't be very kind if their big brother didn't show up again, right?" Naruto curses internally and turns to face her, expression blank. Without a word, he pivots and returns to his room. "Doesn't matter if I'm there or not," he mumbles, closing the door behind him. Kushina watches him leave, a frown settling on her face. "Soon, Sochi, I'll give you the love you deserve too, just a little longer." With a soft sigh, she heads to the kitchen to start breakfast. Later that day, the Uzumaki Namikaze compound is packed with guests. Nearly everyone of importance in Konoha is present: clan heads, their heirs, council members, top jonin, even the fire daimyo's son. The village is buzzing with festivities, commemorating the defeat of the Nine Tails and honoring the young heroes. Everyone is celebrating, except one boy. Naruto sits alone in a darkened room, silently watching the distant celebrations from his window. In his view are three ornate thrones placed on a raised platform, clearly meant to highlight those seated on them. A banner draped in front reads, "Our heroes Mito-sama, Menma-sama, Yae-sama." "Everyone, may I have your attention?" Minato announces warmly. The crowd quiets as he gestures behind him. Out walk the three siblings, dressed impeccably. Mito wears a red kimono with a white floral design, the Uzumaki and Namikaze symbols proudly displayed on the back. Her hair is styled in two buns, decorated with senbon. Menma dons a black yukata with red accents, clan crests on either side of his chest, and that same messy hair and carefree grin. Yae wears a pristine white kimono with blue lining. The Namikaze crest is on her back, with a small Uzumaki swirl above her heart. The trio strides to their thrones with practiced ease, having repeated this performance year after year. Mito takes the left seat, Menma the center, and Yae the right. And now, for the first gift. Naruto turned away from the celebration, his gaze empty, his heart untouched by the scene below. It was the same every year: cheers, admiration, and honor showered upon his siblings, while he stood in the shadows, ignored at best, resented at worst. He wouldn't have cared, but something made him glance back. He saw Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Kushina step forward. The first two held scrolls nearly as large as his torso, while Kushina carried something wrapped delicately in cloth. "I, Jiraiya of the Sannin, hereby name Menma Uzumaki Namikaze as my disciple, and grant him the Toad summoning contract," Jiraiya announced proudly. "Heck yes, thump, watch your mouth, idiot." Menma's excited yell was swiftly cut off by Yae's reprimand as a comically large bump formed on his head. Mito sighed, used to the antics. The moment calmed as Tsunade cleared her throat. "I, Tsunade Senju, appoint Yae Uzumaki Namikaze as my apprentice, and entrust her with the slug summoning pact." She smiled as she watched the bright grin light up the young girl's face. "I, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, recognize Mito Uzumaki Namikaze as my successor and present her with a treasured heirloom, Suijin, the ancestral blade of the Uzumaki." The katana gleamed with legacy. Its handle was wrapped in deep azure fabric, coiling up to a spiral guard reflecting the Uzumaki crest. The matching scabbard was etched with wave-like motifs. As Kushina revealed the silvery blue blade beneath, the air shimmered with chakra. She handed it to Mito while sending a subtle glance at Minato. "I hope you know what you're doing," her eyes seemed to say. Naruto watched, stunned. That blade was a sacred relic, passed down through generations, destined for the Uzumaki clan leader. That's supposed to be mine. I'm the heir, his breath hitched and the hollowness in his chest deepened. No, 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 no. Then Minato and Kushina stepped onto the platform again. As clan leaders of the Namikaze and Uzumaki families, on this day, the 10th of October, our children's 8th birthday, I, Minato Namikaze, declare Menma the heir to the Namikaze clan. And I, Kushina Uzumaki, name Mito the successor of the Uzumaki clan. Peace means different things. It can be the absence of war, or the presence of belonging. Many are granted at least one kind of peace. But for a few, peace is a word with no meaning. For Naruto, peace was just a dream. What he felt instead was betrayal, hurt, rage, loneliness, rejection. Every word felt like another weight on his heart. The moment the announcement ended, he bolted, dashing from the compound at speeds that rivaled those of a trained genin. No one noticed. Cheers and celebration drowned out his retreat. He sprinted into the forest, aimless, seeking escape. Eventually, he arrived at the stone head of the second Hokage, Tabarama Senju. There he collapsed, curling into himself as sobs racked his small body, his tears lost in the wind. Back at the event, laughter and joy echoed. Toasts were made. Sake flowed freely. It was a festival of legacy and pride for almost everyone. Minato embraced his children, his smile bright. Menma beamed like he was on top of the world. Yae offered congratulations before eagerly joining Tsunade for a chat about training. But Mito's expression was different. She stared at the sword her mother handed her, her eyes distant. Minato noticed the shift. Mito, he asked gently. What was that? No, what do you mean no, I don't. I said no. This isn't my sword. Mito's voice cracked the atmosphere like thunder. Heads turned. The Sannin, the clan leaders, and her family all looked stunned. She wasn't finished. This blade belongs to Nigasama, not me. He should be the Uzumaki heir, not me. Why do you all hate my big brother? Silence reigned. Her chakra flared, too faint to threaten but powerful for her age. Kushina looked horrified, fumbling for words. Mito. That's not true. We don't hate him. I could never hate my little boy. Yes you do, Mito screamed, voice cracking. None of you know anything about him. And all this because of that stupid pro. Before she could finish, Georgia appeared behind her, silencing her by placing a firm hand over her mouth. If she lets the prophecy slip, everything we've built could crumble. 8 years of work can't be undone because of one outburst, he thought grimly. He exchanged nods with Kushina and Minato. They silently sprang into damage control. Tsunade comforted Yae. Minato tried to calm the clan heads but failed. Menma clenched his jaw. Even when Naruto wasn't present, he found a way to ruin things. He watched everyone, their attention pulled elsewhere. Tsunade with Yae, Kushina and Georgia whispering with Mito, Minato fielding questions. Why do you always have to ruin everything, Aniki? Why can't you just disappear? Minato was sweating as the clan heads encircled him with questions. What did she mean, Hokage? Asked Inoichi Yamanaka, his long blonde hair tied neatly. You didn't forget your eldest son, did you? Added Hayashi Hyuga, his white eyes narrowed. You mean the demon brat? Guessed another. She said Naruto's name. Wasn't he supposed to be heir? Tsume Inuzuka questioned, brows furrowed. Mikoto Uchiha, standing a bit apart from the others, trembled with quiet fury. Do they not understand? Removing a firstborn from succession is no different than exile. She glanced toward her own children sitting nearby. Grabbing her husband's hand, she walked toward them. Satsuki were leaving. Say your goodbyes. Sasuke offered polite nods. Satsuki simply walked away, scanning the crowd for someone. The Uchiha family exited in silence. Fugaku met Mikoto's eyes. We'll talk later, they both understood. What do I have left? Naruto thought as he stared out over the village, his eyes swollen and red. Why even try? Was I really so worthless they gave up on me? Unseen, a figure watched from the shadows, cloaked in brown, moving silently. The moment came. With practiced ease, he dashed toward the boy, a white cloth in hand. Alone in the woods, the Hokage's son. He'll fetch a fortune from Iwagakure. Jackpot? Schlunk, Naruto froze. One moment, he was drowning in despair. The next, he turned to find a huge stranger reaching for him. Then, the sickening sound. Schlunk. 3 glowing chains impaled the attacker, one in the kidney, another in his shoulder, the third through his chest. His mouth opened in shock. Blood splattered Naruto's stunned face. I didn't mean I, cough sh shut up boy, this is how the ninja world works. Cough Naruto looked into the dying man's eyes, wide with disbelief. Kill or be killed. The strong live, the weak vanish. Don't waste time mourning me, you survived, remember that. The boy slowly nodded, trembling. The chains vanished, allowing the man to slump against Tabarama's stone hair. Heh, funny. Me asking a favor from the brat who ended me. But listen, don't become a Hawkeye or chase someone else's dream. Just become someone powerful. Strong enough that I can take pride in the one who took me down. Naruto, still caught between fear and awe, nodded once more. The man weakly pulled off his hood, revealing shaggy brown hair and dark eyes, all framed by a rugged face that suggested he was in his 30s with slightly tanned skin. The name's Ishii, kid. Guess you've earned the right to know the name of the one you've just slain. The man chuckled, forming a tan seal with his hands. His body began to glow orange, which immediately put Naruto on high alert. Before he could make a move to escape or strike, he stopped, watching in shock as the man's body spontaneously combusted into flames. When their eyes met, Naruto saw no shock or fear in the man's gaze, just a calm acceptance of his inevitable fate. Minutes passed, and Naruto watched in silence as the body turned to nothing but ash. Staring vacantly at the spot where the man had once stood, the weight of the situation hit Naruto all at once. Bleerig, an. How do I write throwing up? Naruto emptied his stomach, the reality of the day catching up to him. Once he finished vomiting, he wiped his mouth, still tasting the awful remnants. His eyes were red and swollen, his breathing ragged. Every inch of him felt like it was on the verge of collapse. His body burned from the cuts he'd sustained running through the forest, and the mental exhaustion from the day's events weighed heavily on him. He staggered to the mountain wall, leaning against it, his eyelids growing heavier until he finally passed out, marking the end of October 10th. No, it definitely hadn't been a good day. Hours later, the celebration at the compound finally began to wind down. Guests trickled out, some heading to their homes, others still enjoying the ongoing festivities in the village. The heads of clans and their families exchanged farewells before making their exit. Minato let out a heavy sigh as the last guest left. He reactivated the security seals around the compound before heading toward his home, a large 3-story Western-style house. While other clans preferred a more traditional design, Minato had always enjoyed the uniqueness of his own. There were still other buildings on the compound dedicated to various purposes: libraries, dojos, even a small bathhouse. He couldn't help but recall some of the fond memories with Kushina there. A perverted giggle escaped him, but he quickly slapped himself to dismiss those thoughts. I'm not like my Baka-sensei. I'm not a. Before his thoughts could wander further, he opened the front door, only to be greeted by an intense staring contest. Mito was glaring at Kushina and Georgia, Kushina at Mito and Georgia at both redheads with a mix of exasperation and anger. Tsunade stood in the corner, glaring at them all while holding a sleeping Yae. The most confusing sight was his son, staring at nothing, as though trying to will someone to feel his anger. Minato quickly decided to make himself scarce as the Hokage of Konoha, figuring this was clearly not his business. He swiftly retreated up the stairs, hoping to avoid being drawn into whatever this was. The others in the room continued to stare one another down. The only acknowledgement of Minato's presence was Kushina briefly glancing at where he had stood before turning back to the confrontation. She whispered something under her breath and everyone nodded in agreement. Wimp. It had been 3 days since the festival, 3 days since Naruto lost everything, 3 days since he unlocked his chains, 3 days since he had taken a life. Naruto hadn't slept properly since, haunted by the look of bloody shock in the man's eyes. Every time he closed his eyes, it was as though the blood of that man still clung to him. The day after the incident, Naruto had returned to the compound to find no one there, and he was relieved. He didn't want to deal with anyone. Once in his room, he cleaned himself up, scrubbing away the dirt, grime, and dried blood, but the reflection in the mirror still showed traces of the man's blood on him. Even after washing, he couldn't escape the feeling. When his family returned, he retreated to his room, collapsing on the floor, staring blankly at the ceiling. For the next 3 days, he had fallen into a routine, staring at the ceiling, drifting into sleep, having nightmares, then waking up to continue the cycle. He hadn't eaten, hadn't left his room, too consumed by his own thoughts. This is how the world works, kid. The strong survive, the weak perish. Survival of the fittest. Just become someone. Someone strong. Naruto shook his head, but the thoughts persisted, drawing him deeper into the monotony of his existence. Meanwhile, Mito Uzumaki Namikaze was beyond frustrated. She had been for a while now. Since that cursed day, her birthday, when her brother Naruto had been effectively disowned by their parents. She'd been contemplating giving up her position as clan heir so that Naruto could have his rightful place. The day after the incident, her mother took her to the clan library for a mandatory 2 hours of studying clan laws, politics, and other subjects to prepare her for her future role as clan head. As she skimmed through the laws, one caught her eye. If the elder child of the clan heir is passed over, they are no longer a legal member of the family. However, the current heir may arrange a marriage to reinstate them into the clan. She blushed at the thought, imagining a future where she married her brother. Yes, we'd be together. No parents to get in the way. No one could tell us what to do. I'll protect him from the village. Yes, Naruto, you'll be my husband. The thought brought a smile to her face, and her bad mood lifted instantly, much to the confusion of the villagers around her. Back at the compound, Naruto couldn't shake a sudden chill that ran down his spine, but he shrugged it off, attributing it to his nightmares. Now Mito was on her way to the Yamanaka compound to pick up her younger sister. Her thoughts drifted to her siblings. Naruto and Menma were so different. Menma was loud and brash, while Naruto was quiet and reserved, often keeping to himself. Back when they were younger, both Menma and Yae had always looked up to Naruto, admiring him like a superhero. But something had changed after the disastrous dinner a month ago. Yae had been avoiding Naruto, likely out of fear of their parents' reaction. Menma, on the other hand, was an unknown to Mito. She couldn't figure out what was going on in his head. Hey Ni-chan, Mito snapped out of her thoughts, smiling as she walked with her younger sister, listening as the blonde rambled on about her day with Ino and training with Tsunade. They strolled leisurely back to the compound, content in the moment. In a forest clearing far from the village, a figure stood by a river. Suddenly, a smaller figure rushed at him from behind a tree, throwing a punch that the older figure dodged. The smaller one launched a kick, but it was caught before he was thrown to the ground. After a brief moment, the boy rose again, launching more attacks, punches, kicks, even biting, all of which were easily avoided or deflected by the older figure. Just as the boy prepared to strike again, the older figure appeared in front of him, tapping him on the head and sending him to the ground. The older figure, Georgia, laughed as the boy, Menma, rolled on the ground, nursing his sore head. Ha ha ha, you'll have to do better than that if you ever want to land a hit on the great toad sage, Georgia. Georgia struck a pose as he finished his declaration. Shut up, you damn pervert. I'll hit you if it's the last thing I do. Menma growled, a vein popping in his head. I'll be so strong, you'll be begging for a hit from me. You, Ka-chan, Tsunade Ba-chan, Kakashinai, and even Tusan. I'll surpass you all and become the goddamn Hokage. Menma's thoughts darkened. And you'll be there, Aniki, in the shadows like the failure you are. If that's the case, then come at me. Or are you still going to be the same whiny brat who needed his older sibling to save him? Georgia taunted with a mocking grin, trying to provoke the boy. His efforts had the desired effect. With a furious roar, Menma charged forward with renewed determination, while Georgia simply laughed, evading his young student's attacks with ease. The old man couldn't help but think that this boy might just be the one to bring the peace he so desperately hoped for. Survive or perish. Become someone formidable. Damn, what am I doing? Naruto thought as he lay in bed, staring out the window. This is pathetic. I've been lying here for days now. I need to become stronger, strong enough so that the Hokage regrets his choice, strong enough that my name echoes across this entire land. I swear on my name, Naruto Uzumaki. No, just Naruto. I swear that on the name Naruto. With that final resolution, he rose from his bed and grabbed a scroll from his shelf. Unfurling it, he saw a jutsu he recognized. Summoning technique, this could be interesting. How do I do it? He wondered as he continued to read. This is a B-rank ninjutsu. To summon an animal, a summoner must first form a contract with that animal or its species. In the case of the toads, the summoner signs a scroll with their blood, marking it with their fingerprints. However, if you lack a contract, you can run through the seals and be transported to the land of animals you're most connected to. Warning: this method is extremely risky. The animals in that land may attack you on sight. The hand seals for this jutsu are Inyu, Torai, Saru, Hitsuji, then slam your hand on the ground. As he finished reading, Naruto hesitated. Should he risk traveling to a dangerous land full of potentially hostile creatures? It sounded suicidal, but if he survived, he could gain the strength of an entire animal clan. I've heard that's how the pervert and the snake got their contracts. If they can survive, so can I, smirking to himself. He rolled the scroll back up and tucked it into his bag. With a plan forming in his mind, he headed to the shower, knowing that his life was about to get a lot more interesting. A pair of onyx eyes locked onto matching ones, one belonging to a boy in a black high-collared shirt, white cargo shorts, and blue shinobi sandals, while the other belonged to a girl dressed in a navy blue high-collared shirt, a gray skirt over black compression shorts, and black sandals. Her long black hair was tied up in a high ponytail. This is a full spar to see which of you has advanced the most in your training. Hold nothing back, and the winner will receive a reward, Fugaku Uchiha declared, his gaze fixed on his two youngest children, Satsuki, the clan's princess, and Sasuke, the young heir. They both took the stance of their clan's taijutsu style, the interceptor fist. As they locked eyes, searching for any weakness, Satsuki's expression was calm, but her eyes radiated confidence with a hint of arrogance. Sasuke's eyes burned with determination, although he couldn't hide the frustration with the smug smirk on his older sister's face. Ready? Fugaku's voice cut through the air, and both siblings nodded simultaneously. Then HAJIME. The training ground fell into silence, the only sound being the soft breeze rustling the leaves. The two siblings continued to stare each other down, waiting for the other to make the first move. 30 seconds passed before Sasuke lunged forward, his speed impressive for someone his age, aiming a punch at her face to wipe that cocky grin off her face. Satsuki flowed around the strike, swiftly delivering a low kick to his right knee, forcing him to the ground. Sasuke, undeterred, rolled back onto his feet just in time to block a knee aimed at his face. He grabbed her leg, but to his surprise, it offered no resistance, and he barely saw her other leg coming for his chest, knocking him back several feet. Fugaku watched with a steely expression, noting the difference between his children. His daughter's superior speed and flexibility allowed her to flow around her brother's attacks, redirecting them effortlessly, an embodiment of the clan's style. She would be a force to be reckoned with once she awakened the Sharingan. Sasuke, on the other hand, was still struggling to adapt. Sasuke shifted tactics, throwing several kunai at her while rushing forward in a zigzag pattern. Satsuki drew her own kunai, deflecting most, but one grazed her left arm, leaving a faint red mark. For a moment, the sting distracted her, and Sasuke capitalized on it, landing a solid kick to her guard before following up with a spinning kick that sent her stumbling back. Fugaku noted with some approval that Sasuke had managed to land a few hits. As Satsuki regained her footing, wiping sweat from her brow, she offered a small grin. "Impressive, Atauto," she said, a hint of surprise and amusement in her voice. "But I'm not done yet." Sasuke grinned, determined. "How about one last move, Ne-sama?" "Very well," she replied, preparing for the final clash. The two quickly ran through a series of hand seals before each put a hand to their mouth. Katen, Gakikyu no Jutsu. Hours later, Naruto found himself in a clearing, wearing a black sleeveless hoodie, gray shinobi pants, and wrapped calves. A small scroll was tucked inside his inner pocket, along with everything he thought he might need for survival, and a weapons pouch on his right leg. Taking a deep breath, he began to run through a set of hand seals, muttering the name of the technique as he slammed his hand to the ground. Kuchios no Jutsu. And with that, the blonde vanished in a puff of smoke, far from Konoha.